Welcome to Flying Magazine's first virtual event. I'm Craig Fuller. I'm the new owner of Flying. Really excited to be here. And this is a really special conversation because it is an airplane that got me back into aviation. I bought an Icon A5 this March, and it really helped me rediscover my aviation passion. I'm here with Chris who leads the international effort of Icon. Chris, how are you today?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So thinking about Icon, it's a relatively new entrant into the aviation sector, really trying to go after an entirely different segment of aviation that has historically been underserved. Tell us a little bit about Icon's strategy as it thinks about customer acquisition.
The strategy for Icon is really to target people who want to regain a sense of adventure. When I grew up with flying, I thought that the highlight of flying would be to get a burger from A to B, and I still do that, and that is fun. But in order to really unleash the sense of adventure, I really felt that Icon has given me something that's truly amazing that we try to pass on when we find potential customers, and that is the ability to not be limited by having to fly to an airport. And so it's like doing bush flying in a sense that you can fly to somewhere that has no airport facility whatsoever, but to do so in a way that's ultra modern, beautiful design, and packed with a lot of safety features that we've learned a lot about safety and aerodynamics in the last 50 to 60 years, and we can benefit from that. And we certainly tried very, very hard to do kind of what Apple has done to the iPad. I remember when I was in college, computers were very boxy. And, what was very impressive about Apple is they put as much effort into the design as they did the engineering. And in some way, Icon has tried to do that for the two-seater amphibious market.
So you think about this market of, one of the initial sort of efforts of Icon was to bring new people into the industry to take up flying. Do you think you've been successful in that, or is most of the market sort of selling to existing pilots that perhaps want to take up their seaplane rating?
It's a great question. I think we've had some successes with that. I would say close to a third of the people who buy an Icon don't have a pilot license. And about 2/3 are people who are mostly non-seaplane pilots who really want to get that sense of adventure. A key part of our strategy is really to do demonstration flights. It is our experience that more often than not, because it's so different from flying anything else, people really tend to have a very different perspective of how adventurous their weekend can be if they can actually try out firsthand and get that really visceral experience of flying an Icon. So doing demonstration flights to people who are obviously pilots, but also non-pilots. And so we've had some successes, I think, with non-pilots, and we definitely like to do more.
Yeah, I tell you, taking people up in the Icon just opens up their eyes of what is capable or possible in an airplane. One of the things, I live in East Tennessee, we have a lot of rivers and mountains around here. And one of the things that I really enjoy is taking people through the gorge and just flying, off the river, through the mountains. There's just something really magical about that. And you mentioned safety. One of the great things is you have a runway always under you if you're flying the river. So that's certainly something that I've really enjoyed. When you think about the growth of Icon, really going from the early days as a startup to where you guys are at today, what does it look like? What's that experience been like?
That experience has been definitely a learning curve, both from the scaling up manufacturing, and we're on the other side now in terms of state-of-the-art manufacturing. And I encourage any potential buyers or customers to come and look at our state-of-the-art factory. But we're on the other side of that learning curve, which has been really great. We've got amazing colleagues. Also, I think in terms of culture, right? We've obviously matured. I would say that we used to be, pre-teens, in the early days of Icon. And now I think if you look at the team that we have in place when it comes to safety, I'm very passionate about safety. I think safety is a lot of fun. I think safety sells, and I think safety brings together a unique camaraderie. And if you look at our flight operations team, our maintenance, our product support team, we've put a lot of effort, and even our marketing team, in terms of together putting videos on how to make sure we manage the landing gear system to stay safe, how we do, beaching safely, and as well as, glassy water and rough landing techniques. And we've been more and more active in that area. And it's something that, as we came up with an app to help people do a risk assessment, before flight. And I think one of the big lessons in I think in aviation that I've taken away all these years. I've been flying 20 years, and it's really humility. I think as great as aircraft are, we need to stay humble and understand that sometimes the most important decision we say is, you know what, today's not the day. Mother Nature is too strong today. I'm just not gonna go fly today. And I think that app is just one of many things that Icon has tried to do to make us even safer.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about flying the Icon, it's different than, say, a land-based aircraft, is you can effectively open up an entirely new adventure. For me, East Tennessee has a lot of lakes and rivers, but I can go 30 to 50 miles around the airport and not even leave this area and still have an entirely new experience. And I think that's one of the great things about being an amphibian aircraft, is the fact that it can do that. Chris, as we think about, you lead up the international effort, and one thing I want to ask is, Icon is, I think of it as really traditionally a U.S.-based company or a North American-based company. Are you seeing a lot of interest overseas?
We're seeing a tremendous amount of interest overseas, and as you know, we are getting the Icon A5 type certified, which is going to greatly facilitate exporting the Icon to countries that either don't have an LSA or have an LSA with a specific weight limit at 650 kilograms. We're closer to 685 kilograms. So being type certified is going to make it a lot easier. We have obviously deposit holders from the past, but we have inquiries pretty much every day from overseas asking us either about buying an Icon A5 or become a dealer overseas. So overseas we have a different strategy than domestically. Overseas we are definitely looking at appointing dealerships that have the local language, local culture, local time zone, local ability to reach out to their customers and do local demonstration flights. So we've started already in that process. We have a few dealerships already, and we're just getting started. I think you very insightfully pointed out that we used to be a very much U.S. focused company, and that was true. And now I would say we are U.S. plus. So where U.S. is always going to be very, very important, very much the core of the company, both in terms of manufacturing and completions for North America, but also in terms of where most aircraft are based. That being said, the international market is very interesting, and we do see a greater percentage of aircraft being based overseas. We already have about a dozen aircraft based overseas, and that's without even turning on the taps. And so next year, the timeline for the type certification has shifted to the right a little bit to March of next year. That's on the FAA side. The good news is the FAA has really engaged in a very active way. So we know the steps that are left for us to get type certification, and they're pretty straightforward. So we are very excited about that. The one good thing about the timeline shifting to the right is that we were able to convince the FAA to include the G3X and the autopilot version included in the initial type certification, rather than having to then later apply for an STC that would take another perhaps 6 months. So this is good news. People who wanted a G3X autopilot version, they actually don't have to wait as long now. It's actually that has shifted to the left to about March. And as you might know, about 75% of people buying an Icon today are opting for the autopilot and G3X.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think I would even care until I got to fly the G3X in another aircraft. And then one thing about the Icon that I really love is how simple it is to fly. But there are times when you want a little bit more advanced avionics to take it a little bit further, because it does sort of relieve that, particularly when you're sort of flying to a destination. Not so much when you get there and you're flying over the water or over the mountains, but more as you sort of do between the points where you're perhaps taking it cross country and trying to get to the location where you're wanting to take the plane.
You can get there in a more rested way. So when it is time to switch on and look at that water environment as you assess how to land and prepare for that landing, you're much more refreshed. So I think that has some safety benefits as well.
Yes, a stick and rudder can be pretty exhausting if you do that for a couple of hours. Absolutely. What is next? So you guys have new paint schemes or new livery schemes that you've rolled out. You've got the blue. You've got the, we call it, is it stealth gray, I believe it's called. And then you've sort of got the traditional red. Anything else that's on the horizon?
Well, like anything else, things can be customized, right? We're customer driven. But in terms of, right off the bat, yes, we do have also at Oshkosh, you might remember the unique color that we have that was kind of a blend between yellow and green, right? Which is, I found really sexy. And, I think with a modern aircraft like the Icon, it's very refreshing that we are finally able to put a modern touch to color. So if people have something very specific that they need, we can get that done as well.
No, it's a beautiful aircraft. I highly recommend that you go out and fly it if you haven't had the chance. It's something I'm really excited about. I'm actually ordered a second one with the new G3X because I want to put one up in New York where my wife's family is. So when I go up for the summers, I can go visit the lakes, and then one down here in Tennessee. I want to keep one down here as well. Chris, really enjoyed it. I do have one last question before you go. If you could have any airplane, anything that you could personally have, what would it be?
And let's exclude the Icon, because that's, you're putting me in a tough spot there, because I love flying the Icon. It's an addiction that I've been fortunate to fly since joining Icon a few years ago. For me, it would probably be an L39. I took some L39 lessons a few years ago in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and that would be on my list.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, really enjoyed it. I hope you come back. Best of luck as you guys roll out the new version of the Icon and you continue your expansion.
Thanks, Rick. All the best to Flying Magazine. Really appreciate being a fan for many years. Thank you.